We are situated in a 4.5 acre site, and then the normal sightings that we get to see is slender loris or snakes on an average day. Anybody who comes to Agumbe Rainforest Research Station would not go back without seeing a snake. So you would see a pit viper or some snake which is basking or then resting. So that's the kind of area that we are situated at. So we have more than 250 species of birds, about 40 species of reptiles and amphibians, about 100 plus species of butterflies, about 100 plus species of spiders. So this is a very diverse setup. Myself Rithan, I work here as a program coordinator at the Agumbe Rainforest Research Station. I've been associated with the organization for a year and a half now. I started off, as a enthusiast. In case of snakes, it was just an encounter with a rat snake at my place. So we are right now at the Agumbe Rainforest Research Station, which was started in 2005 by a legendary herpetologist Romulus Whittaker. In 1970s, he was traveling in Western Ghats, and that was the first time he had his first encounter with king cobras. And that's when he kind of realized that he needs to do something with king cobras and understand more about them. So back in 1970s, there was not much known about them. And then it took him about 30 years to come back to Agumbe again and then start off his own place. And that's right now we are at the same place. That's the Agumbe Rainforest Research Station. And this research station has been working with the radio telemetry of king cobras past 10 years now. So what we found to this research, back then I was narrating how Ram started his career in terms of king cobras. Now, after the transmitters were inserted, there were a lot of researchers who have contributed immensely for this particular research, that's king cobra radio telemetry. And what we have found is the home range. That's very important in terms of snakes and snake rescues, because a lot of people would catch snakes and release it very far away from its home range. So that gives very less chance for a snake to survive. So through this research, we are able to tell this is a home range of a king cobra, and if relocated very far, it would not survive. So this is a very big contribution for research and also conservation. Secondly, we know their behaviors. So once a transmitter is inserted, we have people following king cobras in the wild and understanding how they react to different temperatures, when do they sleep, when do they wake up, when do they hunt, how do they hunt, and what do they hunt. So we now know that king cobras often feed on rat snakes, spectacled cobras, monitor lizards, pythons, pit vipers. Pit vipers are more like biscuits since they are very small. Pit vipers are more like biscuits for king cobras, considering the size of king cobras. Okay, but for a juvenile king cobra, maybe we are still not sure of how exactly is a juvenile king cobra thriving, because what we mostly see, what we mostly get to rescue is all adults, which is about 8 to 9 feet. And we never get to see a king cobra which is 3 feet or 2 feet or 5 feet. It's very rare that we have a chance. So this is a research gap that we have, that nobody knows what king cobras would be doing once they're born, once they come out of the eggs. Like, nobody knows. Other than research, what we also focus on is rescues and outreach programs. We normally on an average get 1 to 2 rescue calls, be it king cobras or any other snakes for that matter. So what we mostly focus when we go for rescues is community education. Normally we would insist people to come out and kind of listen to us and understand what exactly are these snakes and how are they useful to us. So we assume that we cannot really conserve anything without the support of local community. So conservation only because of conservation with the support of local community. So we would say they are the major, contributors in terms of conservation. So what we normally insist is we do a lot of, we share a lot of knowledge. What we know and what problems they face in terms of snakes. And you'd be surprised, there are times that people would come back to us and say, "Sir, please don't take the snake off from our place. You can release it somewhere very close by." So that's when we feel very successful, because them being convinced, to have a snake very close to their proximity is very nice, and it's not seen everywhere. You go to urban places. So I started as a urban rescuer. So there was very less people who would be okay with snakes being around their premise. But if you come to Agumbe or Malnad region, The people are so calm, and let's say you see a king cobra, they would just call and say, sir, there's a king cobra there and it's just there basking. So do we have to rescue them or just leave it as it is? We would normally insist the people to inform the forest department officials. So what happens normally on a average day is that we have a lot of rescuers, which is good. We have good number of rescuers, so any conflict situations there are people to come and catch and then release it. But what we also fail to understand, what rescuers fail to understand, is that you catch a snake from jungle setup and you release it in an urban setup. The snake would mostly not thrive in such setup because it's already born and kind of brought up in a jungle setup and it's not used to the urban setup. So the problem that we have in Agumbe or anywhere in India is relocation. People would catch snakes and just relocate it very far. We are not sure what could be the fate of other species, but for king cobras, it says that they normally get weakened and then they don't normally survive because they're not used to a new setup. So any snake for that matter, I would say if they are translocated to a very far distance, they would mostly have a lot of threat, but also may not survive. I can't exactly tell they would not survive at all. There's a very high possibility that snake could die if they relocated very far. So what we insist the rescuers is outreach. So this is where rescuers can play a major role. Rescuers himself is a big contribution, but him talking about the snake and then clearing off all the myths and then giving them all positive inputs could clear off a lot of doubts in terms of king cobras or any snakes for that matter, and they would maybe agree to release the snake very close by. So that's very important. You cannot translocate a snake somewhere 15 kilometers or 20 kilometers away. So king cobras, despite being massive in size, they're very docile creatures. Let's say we have a rescue call for a spectacled cobra and then a king cobra. We have two different situations now, and if somebody asks what would you choose, we would mostly go with spectacled cobras and leave king cobras aside because we know they are very docile. So post 2013, I might be wrong in numbers, post 2013 as per what I know, there are only 2 or 3 king cobra snake bite deaths in India. So there's no people who have been bitten in farmland, or there's nobody who's been bitten in agricultural land. So, but you go to spectacled cobras or Russell's viper, there are a lot of people who get bitten on a daily basis. So king cobras, despite being massive in size, they are gentle giants, I would say. They're too docile, and they would give you a lot of warning signs, don't kind of bother me or disturb me. And nesting behavior is something that's very interesting with king cobras. So once the mating is done, let's say the male and female meets, they have the intimacy period for about 7 to 15 days. Post that, the female would choose a place which is away from human habitat, and she choose to build a nest there. And she would mostly prefer places which is also close to water body, and then where she gets enough sunlight. Also there's a lot of rain falling. So the nesting season is post May, let's say the May 15 or May 30th. And then imagine the rain at Agumbe, June, July is insane rain. And then the nests have to tolerate this insane rain, but also tolerate a lot of bigger mammals, let's say gores or deers. They could just come over the nest and they would destroy the nest. So there's a lot of threat that way. But in terms of nest, we were also surprised that if they are building a nest, there's like good amount of sunlight that is coming in, but there is also a lot of water. But there's no water drops, going inside the nest. So this is something very unique with king cobras. So we don't know the exact reason how exactly it happens. It's yet to be, discovered or yet to be spoken about. Coming to lifespan of king cobras, it says they survive for about 24 to 25 years. That's in captive setup. So in the wild, we are not sure how long they would survive. And our encounters with king cobras now, the longest and the biggest. So my biggest encounter was the king cobra weighed about 14.5 kg. It was huge, massive, and considering the size, there was a lot of people gathered to see the king cobra. And my reaction was, I was the first person to get down from jeep, and then I saw the king cobra, and my reaction is just like, wow. And then this is how I'm reacting, and Ajay is like, what? So that's how big the snake was. And we were expecting it to be 12-13 kgs, but my god, 14.5 for a king cobra is really, really big. So king cobras, we would name it as apex predators. They are on top of the food chain. So I was talking about their major hunt. So they mainly hunt on rat snakes and spectacle cobras. Okay. So how do rat snakes come into our properties? They follow rats. Let's say we have a huge space or a small space or a storeroom, and then we have a lot of waste dumped. It's more like welcoming a rat snake. So a rat snake could come, and then a spectacle cobra might also come looking for a rat. So these are two conditions where we are welcoming rat snakes and spectacle cobras. And then king cobras for food, they would come in search of rat snakes and spectacle cobras, and that's when they end up having conflict with humans. If not, they're least interested with humans. So let's consider Malnad again. Let's say we don't have king cobras at all at Malnadu. Then we would have booming rat snakes, spectacle cobras, we have booming pythons, booming monitor lizards. So there's nothing to control all of this. So king cobras, being the apex predators, they are very much important to control all this, prey, let's say rat snakes and spectacle cobras. And this is what we tell people also, that they are controlling all the venomous snakes which is in your property. That's when they kind of understand, oh, then it's good. Then let's have them. Let's not relocate it. So king cobras, considering their importance, they play a very, very important role in the food chain. They control all, let's say, rat snakes, spectacle, pythons, different species of snakes around us. So considering this era, I think people, the younger generations, is given the exposure, let's say the forest exposure or herpetology exposure or amphibians for that matter. We have a lot of schools which conducts tours for students where they come and stay at Agumbe or any setups and then kind of explore and understand what exactly it is. So it's already happening. So I would say that maybe in a couple of years, people would mostly very much coexist with snakes as per, my experience. Malnadu people, definitely yes. It all depends on how good is a rescuer in communicating, how good is he spreading the message. So in the coming years, I would say that maybe we would not have problems in case of coexistence. But we would also have, let's say we have 10, 100 people, and then one would say, no, we cannot have a snake in our society. That means everybody would have to disagree, and then you can never say, but I have a very positive side that people would change and understand how important are snakes for us, and they would let the snake be as it is.